The chandeliers dripped gold light across marble floors, and the woman in the emerald dress moved through the crowd like she belonged nowhere near this kind of wealth. Lorenzo Caruso watched her from the balcony, champagne forgotten in his hand, chest tightening with something he hadn't felt in 15 years of calculated control. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to make him feel like the floor had dropped out from under his empire. But when their eyes met across the ballroom, something ancient and impossible cracked open inside him. Hunger, need, the terrifying recognition that his carefully constructed world had just become irrelevant. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the life we're born into, but the person who makes us want to walk away from it. True strength isn't about power or control. It's about choosing love even when everything you've built tells you not to. Remember, the bravest thing you can do is let someone see the real you. Please like, share, and subscribe. 3 hours earlier, Lorenzo had been standing in his penthouse office, staring at the problem his sister had created. "You need a date for the charity gala," Isabella said, arms crossed. "The Constantines will be there. The Russians. If you show up alone again, they'll think you're weak." "I don't care what they think. You should." Perception is everything in our world. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. His sister was right as usual. In the life they'd inherited, the territories, the legitimate businesses fronting for less legitimate ones, the network of debts and favors spanning 3 continents, appearances mattered more than truth. "I don't have time to find someone." "Then pay someone." Isabella dropped a folder on his desk. "Professional escorts." "Discreet." "Pick one." He'd flipped through the profiles with detached efficiency until Isabella pulled one out. "Not her," his sister said quietly. "Why not?" "Because she's not an escort. She's the housekeeper's daughter. Camille. She works in the East Wing." Lorenzo studied the photo. Dark skin, natural beauty, eyes that suggested intelligence and wariness in equal measure. Something about her face made him pause. "She needs money for her mother's surgery," Isabella continued. $5,000. "She's been picking up extra shifts, but it's not enough. So offer her the job." "Lorenzo." $5,000. One night. She says yes or no." Camille stood in the kitchen of the Caruso estate, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the hospital administrator explain that her mother's surgery had been moved up. They needed the deposit by tomorrow. $5,000 she didn't have. When Isabella Caruso found her an hour later, Camille was crying in the pantry. "I have a proposition," Isabella said gently. Later that evening, Camille stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The emerald dress Isabella had sent fit perfectly, hugging curves she usually hid under loose uniforms. Her natural hair was styled in soft curls, and the makeup artist had enhanced rather than masked her features. She looked expensive, confident. Nothing like the woman who scrubbed floors and changed sheets. The car that picked her up was a Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver said nothing during the 20-minute ride to the venue. Camille spent the time reminding herself this was just a job. Stand beside Lorenzo Caruso for 3 hours. Smile. Make small talk. Pretend to be someone she wasn't. Then collect $5,000 and save her mother's life. Simple. The gala was in a hotel ballroom that probably cost more to rent than Camille made in 5 years. Crystal and gold everywhere. Women in diamonds. Men in suits that cost more than cars. Lorenzo was waiting in a private room off the lobby. When she entered, he turned from the window. Camille's breath caught. She'd seen him around the estate, always at a distance, always surrounded by security or on his phone. But up close, Lorenzo Caruso was devastating. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples and eyes like black coffee. His face was all sharp angles and controlled intensity. The kind of man who made rooms go quiet when he entered. "Camille." His voice was deep, accented. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He moved closer, studying her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "The dress suits you. Your sister has good taste." "She does." He was still looking at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "There are rules for tonight. Stay close to me. Don't speak to anyone unless I introduce you first. If anyone asks uncomfortable questions, deflect to me." "What kind of uncomfortable questions?" "How we met. How long we've been together. Whether it's serious." His eyes held hers. "Tell them we're private people. Nothing more." And what's the truth? The truth is I'm paying you to stand beside me and make certain men believe I'm not as alone as they think I am. He said it without shame or apology. Can you do that? Camille thought of her mother in a hospital bed. Yes. Good. He offered his arm. Then let's begin. The moment they entered the ballroom, Camille understood why Isabella had insisted on this arrangement. Every eye turned to them. Conversations paused. The weight of attention was suffocating. But Lorenzo moved through it like he owned the air itself. His hand settled on her lower back, warm, possessive, grounding. She felt the message he was sending to everyone watching. This woman is mine. It shouldn't have affected her. This was just a transaction. But her body didn't care about logic. An hour into the evening, a man approached them. Silver-haired, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lorenzo. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. Victor. Lorenzo's voice was cool. This is Camille. Camille Victor Constantine. He runs the shipping operations in the port district. Among other things. Victor's gaze slid over her in a way that made her skin crawl. You've been keeping her a secret. I keep many things secret. Clearly. Victor's smile sharpened. She's beautiful. Where did you find her? The question carried weight Camille didn't fully understand, but she felt Lorenzo's hand tighten on her waist. That's private, she said smoothly. Victor's eyebrows rose. She speaks. She does. Lorenzo's voice was silk over steel. And we're done with this conversation. He guided Camille away before Victor could respond. They spent the next hour circulating through the crowd. Lorenzo introduced her to dozens of people. Politicians, businessmen, women dripping in jewelry. Most were polite. Some were curious. A few looked at her with barely concealed disdain. Camille held her head high and played her part. But she noticed things. The way men watched Lorenzo with wariness. The careful distance people maintained. The subtle deference in every interaction. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. The kind that came with violence as its shadow. Near midnight they stepped onto a balcony for air. The city sprawled below them, glittering and cold. You're good at this, Lorenzo said quietly. At what? Pretending you belong in my world. Camille turned to face him. I don't belong in your world, Mr. Caruso. I'm just visiting. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe or respect. Lorenzo. Call me Lorenzo. That doesn't seem appropriate. Why not? Because after tonight I'll go back to cleaning your house and you'll go back to whatever it is you do. This, she gestured at the ballroom behind them, isn't real. No, he agreed. It's not. But he was looking at her like he wanted it to be. The moment that changed everything came just before 1 a.m. They were saying goodbye to the last group of guests when a younger man, handsome, charming with an easy smile, approached Camille directly. I'm Marco Vitelli, he said warmly. I don't think we've met. Camille. She shook his hand politely. You're with Lorenzo? Marco's tone suggested this was surprising. Yes. Lucky man. Marco's smile widened. If he ever makes the mistake of letting you go, I'd love to take you to dinner. It was flirtation, harmless and open. The kind of thing that happened at events like this. But Lorenzo's hand wrapped around her wrist, not painful but unmistakably possessive, and pulled her back against his chest. She won't be available, Lorenzo said quietly. His voice was calm. His eyes were murder. Marco raised his hands in mock surrender. Just a compliment, friend. I'm not your friend. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marco left quickly. Camille felt Lorenzo's heart hammering against her back, felt the tension in every muscle. When she turned to look up at him, his face was a mask of barely controlled rage. We're leaving, he said. In the car, silence stretched between them like a living thing. Camille finally broke it. He touched you. He shook my hand. That's not. He wanted you. Lorenzo's voice was rough. He looked at you like you were available. Like you weren't standing beside me. I'm not actually yours, Lorenzo. This was a job. He turned to face her and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Was it? The question hung in the air between them. Yes, Camille whispered. But the word felt like a lie. The next morning, Camille woke to find an envelope under her apartment door. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note in elegant handwriting. Thank you for last night. Your mother's surgery is scheduled for Monday. All expenses have been covered. Oh. Her hands shook as she read it. He'd paid for everything. Not just her fee but her mother's surgery, the hospital stay, everything. But a few days later, Camille returned to work at the estate. She told herself things would go back to normal. She'd clean rooms, avoid Lorenzo, forget the way he'd looked at her on that balcony. But the universe had other plans. She was in the library, dusting shelves, when the door opened behind her. Camille. She turned to find Lorenzo standing in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted and impossibly attractive. Mr. Crusoe. I didn't know you were home. It's Lorenzo. And I need to talk to you. Her heart started racing. About what? About the fact that I haven't stopped thinking about you since Saturday night. He moved closer, each step deliberate. About the fact that I've gone through my days in meetings and phone calls and negotiations, but all I can see is you in that dress. All I can hear is your voice. All I can think about is whether you felt what I felt. Camille backed against the bookshelf. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. He stopped just inches away, close enough that she could feel his body heat. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me it was just a job and you felt nothing. She couldn't. The words wouldn't come. Camille. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Tell me I'm alone in this. You're my employer, she whispered. That can change. You're dangerous. Not to you. Never to you. You don't even know me. Then let me. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. Let me know you. Every logical thought in her head screamed at her to step away. To protect herself from a man like this. A man whose world operated by rules she couldn't understand, whose power came with violence as its foundation. But her body betrayed her. Her hand came up to rest against his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palm. One dinner, he said softly. That's all I'm asking. If you feel nothing, I'll never bring this up again. You'll keep your job and we'll pretend this conversation never happened. And if I feel something, then we figure out what comes next. His eyes searched hers. Together. He should say no. She should protect her heart and her job and her safe, simple life. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, okay. One dinner. The smile that crossed his face was devastating. That evening, a dress arrived at her apartment. Black silk this time, elegant and understated. No note. She didn't need one. The car picked her up at 7. Lorenzo had reserved an entire restaurant. Just the two of them and a small staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. This is excessive, Camille said, but she was smiling. I don't do anything halfway. He pulled out her chair. Especially not this. They talked for hours. He asked about her childhood, her mother, her dreams. She asked about Italy, his family, what it was like growing up in his world. He was surprisingly honest. About the violence he'd witnessed, the choices he'd had to make, the weight of responsibility he carried. I'm not a good man, he said at one point. I don't believe that. You should. His eyes were serious. I've done things that would horrify you. I've made decisions that cost lives. I've built everything I have on foundations of blood and fear. Then why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know what you're considering. If this, he gestured between them, becomes something real, you need to understand who I am. Camille set down her wine glass. Then let me tell you who I see. I see a man who paid for my mother's surgery when he didn't have to. A man who's been nothing but respectful to me. A man who runs an empire but makes time to have dinner with his housekeeper. You're more than my housekeeper. Am I? Yes. He reached across the table, taking her hand. From the moment I saw your picture, you've been more. Later, in the car, Lorenzo's driver took them to the waterfront. They walked along the pier, city lights reflecting on dark water. Tell me something you've never told anyone, Lorenzo said. Camille thought for a moment. I'm terrified of becoming my father. Why? Because he left. When things got hard, when my mother got sick the first time, he just disappeared. And I'm so afraid that I'll do the same thing. That when life gets difficult, I'll run instead of staying. Lorenzo stopped walking, turning to face her. You won't. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you didn't run from me even though you should have. Because you take extra shifts to save your mother, because you show up every day and do work that's beneath someone with your intelligence, because you stood beside me in a room full of predators and never flinched. His hands came up to frame her face. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Tears pricked her eyes. Lorenzo. I'm falling for you. The words were raw, honest. I know it's too soon. I know this is complicated. But I need you to know, this isn't a game to me. You're not a game to me. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much I already feel when I barely know you. Then get to know me. He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. I'll wait. However long it takes, I'll wait. By the end of the week, Camille had accepted that what she felt for Lorenzo wasn't going away. If anything, it was growing stronger with every text message, every stolen conversation, every time she caught him watching her with that intense, focused attention that made her feel like the only person in his world. She'd moved from cleaning the East Wing to helping Isabella with administrative work. A promotion Lorenzo had insisted on, claiming she was wasted on housekeeping. He's obsessed with you, Isabella said one afternoon, not unkindly. I've never seen my brother like this. Like what? Happy. Distracted. Human. Isabella smiled. It's good for him. You're good for him. I don't know what I'm doing. None of us do. But I'll tell you this. Lorenzo doesn't do anything lightly. If he's pursuing you, it's because you matter. And if you matter to him, he'll move heaven and earth to keep you safe. The catalyst came 2 weeks after their first dinner. Camille had been working late in Lorenzo's home office, organizing files when his business partner, a man named Luca, arrived for a meeting. Lorenzo had stepped out to take a phone call, leaving them alone. Luca was charming, funny, easy to talk to. When he asked about her relationship with Lorenzo, she'd answered honestly. We're figuring things out. He's lucky, Luca said. You seem like the kind of woman who could handle our world. I'm not sure I want to handle your world. Smart. Luca's smile was knowing. Men like us, we're not built for normal relationships. Too much blood on our hands. When Lorenzo returned, his eyes went immediately to the space between them. To the comfortable way Luca was leaning against the desk, smiling at Camille. Luca. We'll talk in the conference room. The change in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. Dismissive. After Luca left, Lorenzo closed the door. What did he say to you? Nothing. We were just talking. About what? Camille frowned. Why does it matter? Because he wants you. Lorenzo's voice was tight. Because every man who sees you wants you, and I have to watch them look at you like you're not mine. I'm not yours, Lorenzo. We've been on a few dates. That doesn't mean. Doesn't it? He moved closer, eyes blazing. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't think about me every night. Tell me your heart doesn't race when I walk into a room. She couldn't. Because all of it was true. That's what I thought. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up. So let me make this very clear. You are mine. Whether you're ready to admit it or not. Whether it makes sense or not. Or mine. Then he kissed her. It was claiming, consuming, desperate. His mouth moved over hers like he was drowning and she was air. Camille melted into him, hands fisting in his shirt, body pressing against his as 14 days of tension finally broke. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Lorenzo. Not like that. I need you near me. Please. She stayed. They ended up on his bedroom balcony, her wrapped in his jacket, his arms around her waist as they watched the city below. Tell me about Italy, she said softly. So he did. He told her about growing up in Sicily, about his father's empire, about the day he'd realized he would inherit a legacy built on violence, about his sister and their mother who died when they were young, about the choices he'd made to survive. And then she told him about growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, about her father leaving, about the fear that had shaped her entire life. They talked until dawn, and when the sun rose, Lorenzo walked her to the guest room and kissed her goodnight with a gentleness that made her ache. Thank you, he whispered against her lips. For what? For seeing me. The real me. And staying anyway. The next morning everything changed. Camille woke to raised voices downstairs. She found Lorenzo in his office, surrounded by security, Isabella looking pale and frightened. What's wrong? Lorenzo's eyes met hers and she saw fear for the first time since she'd met him. You need to leave. Now. What? Why? Because someone just put a hit out on anyone I care about. His voice was steel, but his hands shook when they gripped her shoulders. And that means you're a target. Within an hour, Camille was in a car with two of Lorenzo's security guards, heading to a safe house across the city. She'd barely had time to grab her phone before Lorenzo had pulled her into a crushing embrace and whispered, "I'll fix this. I promise." The safe house was a luxury apartment in a building with armed security. Her guards, Marco and Vincent, were professional and silent. They checked every room, secured every entrance, then positioned themselves outside her door. Camille sat on the pristine white couch and tried to process what had just happened. Someone wanted her dead because of Lorenzo. Later that evening her phone rang. "Lorenzo, are you safe?" "Yes. Your men are very thorough." "Good." He sounded exhausted. "I'm sorry, Camille. I should have seen this coming." "Who's behind it?" "Victor Constantine. He's been trying to move into my territory for months. Apparently he decided the best way to hurt me was to go after what I care about." "How does he even know about me?" Silence on the other end. "Then, the gala. He saw us together. Saw how I looked at you. And that was enough." Camille's chest tightened. "So this is my fault?" "No." Lorenzo's voice was fierce. "This is my fault. My world, my enemies, my failure to protect you. You can't protect everyone from everything. I can protect you. And I will." "Pause. I need you to stay at the safe house until this is resolved." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. Days. Maybe weeks." "Weeks? Lorenzo, I have a job. My mother is being moved to a private facility with round-the-clock security. Your job is waiting for you when this is over. But right now the only thing that matters is keeping you alive." The first few days were suffocating. Camille was trapped in luxury, beautiful apartment, gourmet meals delivered 3 times a day, every amenity she could want, but it was still a cage. Lorenzo called every night. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes he just wanted to hear her voice before going into another meeting or confrontation. "I miss you," he admitted on the 4th night. "I miss you too. This isn't how I wanted this to go. Us. I know. When this is over." He stopped and she heard the weight of everything unsaid. "When this is over, what?" "I want to do this right. Take you on proper dates. Introduce you to everyone as mine. Make sure the whole world knows you're the woman who brought Lorenzo Caruso to his knees." Camille smiled despite everything. "That's quite a claim." "It's the truth." His voice was rough with emotion. "You have no idea what you've done to me, Camille. I've spent 15 years building walls, staying in control, never letting anyone close. And then you walked into my life and destroyed everything in the space of one night. Is that a good thing?" "It's the best thing that's ever happened to me." A week into her confinement, everything fell apart. Camille woke in the middle of the night to shouting. Gunshots. Her door burst open and Vincent was there, face grim. "We need to move. Now." "What's happening?" "They found you." Terror flooded her system. Vincent pulled her through the apartment, down a service elevator, into an underground garage where another car was waiting. They drove through the city at breakneck speed, Vincent on his phone the entire time. When they finally stopped, they were at Lorenzo's estate. But not the main house. A separate building on the property, smaller and fortified. Lorenzo was waiting. The moment Camille stepped out of the car, he was there, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that stole her breath. "Are you hurt?" "No. I'm fine." He held her tighter, face buried in her hair. She felt him shaking. "Lorenzo. I almost lost you." His voice broke. "They got past my security. They were minutes away from you. But they didn't get me. I'm safe." He pulled back to look at her, and the raw fear in his eyes made her chest ache. "This is my fault. All of it." "No." "Yes." He stepped away, running his hands through his hair. "I brought you into this. I made you a target. I was selfish and reckless, and I should have stayed away from you. Lorenzo, don't. You need to disappear, Camille. New identity, new city, new life. I have people who can make it happen. You'll be safe and you'll never have to worry about my world touching you again." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You're sending me away? I'm saving your life. By erasing me? By pretending we never happened. By making sure Victor Constantine and everyone like him can never use you to hurt me." His jaw was tight, eyes haunted. "Don't you understand? As long as you're connected to me, you'll never be safe. Camille felt something crack inside her chest. So that's it? You're done with me. I'm protecting you. You're abandoning me. The accusation hung between them. Just like my father did. Just like everyone does when things get hard. That's not fair. Isn't it? Tears burned her eyes. You said you were falling for me. You said I mattered. But the first time things get dangerous, you're pushing me away. Because I love you. The words exploded out of him, raw and desperate. Because I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my life, and I will not, watch you die because of me. Camille stared at him, heart pounding. You love me. Of course I love you. He looked wrecked. I've loved you since that first night. Since you stood beside me in that ballroom and looked at my world with clear eyes. Since you called me out for being excessive and told me you didn't belong in my life. Since you made me want to be something more than what I am. Then don't send me away. She moved closer, taking his face in her hands. Fight for me. Fight for us. I am fighting for you. That's what this is. No. Fighting for me would be keeping me close. Protecting me while we figure this out together. Fighting for me would be choosing us instead of choosing fear. Camille. Do you remember what you told me? That I'm the bravest person you've ever met. Her voice shook. Then let me be brave. Let me choose this. Let me choose you even knowing the risk. I can't. Yes, you can. She kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. Love, fear, desperation, hope. When she pulled back, she whispered against his lips, I love you too. And I'm not going anywhere. For a moment she saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Then his control shattered. He kissed her like a drowning man, lifting her into his arms and carrying her inside. They made it to his bedroom before the world narrowed to just the two of them. Every touch was desperate, reverent, claiming. Lorenzo worshipped her body like she was sacred, whispering Italian prayers against her skin. Camille gave herself to him completely, every wall demolished, every defense abandoned. When they finally came together, it felt like inevitability. Like every moment since they'd met had been leading here. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Camille felt something shift and settle deep in her chest. This was real. This was forever. I'm not letting you go, Lorenzo whispered against her hair. Good. Because I'm not leaving. But in the morning, doubt crept back in. Camille woke alone. She found Lorenzo in his office, surrounded by security reports and surveillance photos. He looked like he hadn't slept. Hey, she said softly. He looked up and the expression on his face made her stomach drop. Regret. Guilt. Pain. Last night was a mistake. The words were a knife to the chest. What? We shouldn't have. He couldn't even finish the sentence. You need to leave, Camille. Today. You said you loved me. I do. That's why you have to go. Stop pushing me away. Stop making this harder than it already is. He stood, eyes blazing. Don't you understand? They will kill you to get to me. And after last night, after what we did, you're even more of a target. Because now they'll know for certain that you're everything to me. So what was last night? A goodbye. His silence was answer enough. Camille felt her heart shatter. I can't believe you. You told me you were falling for me. You made me believe we had something real. And now you're just done. I'm trying to keep you alive. No. You're a coward. The accusation came out harsh and bitter. You're so afraid of losing me that you're choosing to push me away instead. Well, congratulations, Lorenzo. You win. I'm gone. She left before he could respond, before the tears could fall, before she could beg him to change his mind. The next morning, Camille was back in her apartment, ignoring the security detail Lorenzo had stationed outside her building. She'd called her mother, confirmed she was safe, then turned off her phone. She'd been a fool to think someone like Lorenzo Caruso could love someone like her. To think his world and hers could ever coexist. 3 days passed in a blur of numbness. Camille went through the motions, eating, sleeping, trying not to think about Lorenzo's hands on her skin or his voice saying he loved her. On the 4th day, Isabella showed up at her door. He's going to do something stupid, Isabella said without preamble. What are you talking about? My brother. He's planning to meet with Victor Constantine. Alone. To negotiate your safety. Camille's blood ran cold. That's suicide. I know. But he doesn't care. He's willing to give up everything. Territories, businesses, power. if it means Constantine leaves you alone. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only person who can stop him. Isabella's eyes were fierce. He loves you, Camille. More than his empire, more than his reputation, more than his own life. And if you love him back, you need to go to him before he destroys everything. The meeting was set for midnight at an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. Camille arrived an hour early, slipping past security using access codes Isabella had provided. She found Lorenzo alone in the center of the massive space, checking his weapon with mechanical efficiency. What are you doing here? His voice was hard. Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your life. This isn't your concern. Like hell it's not. She walked toward him, fear and fury warring in her chest. You're willing to die for me, but you won't live for me? If I live, you're still a target. This is the only way. No. This is you being a martyr because you're too afraid to fight for us. I am fighting for you. Then do it with me beside you. Her voice echoed in the empty space. Stop trying to protect me by destroying yourself. Stop making decisions for both of us. If we're really doing this, then we do it together. Camille. I love you, you stubborn, self-sacrificing idiot. And I'm not going to stand here and watch you throw your life away because you're too afraid to be happy. Lorenzo stared at her, weapon forgotten. You shouldn't be here. Too bad. I'm here. And I'm not leaving. This is dangerous. Everything about you is dangerous. But I choose you anyway. She closed the distance between them, taking his face in her hands. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to face Constantine together. We're going to negotiate from a position of strength. Both of us. And then we're going to go home and build a life that's ours, not his, not anyone else's. You're insane. I'm in love. Same thing. For the first time in days, Lorenzo smiled. Then he kissed her, deep and claiming and full of promise. If we do this, there's no going back, he said against her lips. Good. Because I'm all in. When Victor Constantine arrived with his men, he found Lorenzo and Camille standing together. United. Unbreakable. This is unexpected, Victor said, eyes narrowing. I thought you'd come alone, Lorenzo. Plans changed. And the girl is my partner. In everything. Lorenzo's hand found Camille's, fingers interlacing. Which is why we're here to make a new arrangement. I'm listening. You want my eastern territories. You can have them. In exchange, everyone I care about is off limits. Forever. You come near her, her family, anyone connected to me, and I burn your entire operation to the ground. Victor considered this. That's a significant concession. It's non-negotiable. And what's to stop me from just taking the territories and killing her anyway? Lorenzo's smile was cold. Because I've spent the last week compiling evidence of every illegal transaction you've ever made. Every bribe, every murder, every deal. It's currently sitting in a secure location with instructions to be delivered to the FBI, Interpol, and the Italian authorities if anything happens to me or mine. Victor's face darkened. That's a dangerous game. It's insurance. Take the deal or don't. But know that if you choose war, I will destroy you and everyone you love. Silence stretched between them. Then Victor laughed. You've changed, Crusoe. Become ruthless in new ways. Love does that. Apparently. Victor looked at Camille with new respect. She must be extraordinary. She is. Victor extended his hand. We have a deal. The territories are mine. Your people are safe. They shook on it, and just like that the war was over. A month later, Camille moved into Lorenzo's estate officially. Not as an employee but as his partner. His equal. The transition wasn't easy. There were whispers, judgment from people who thought she didn't belong. But Lorenzo shut down every comment with cold efficiency, making it clear that anyone who disrespected her was disrespecting him. Isabella became her closest friend. Lorenzo's security team became her family. And slowly, impossibly, Camille found her place in his world. 6 months after that first night at the gala, Lorenzo took her back to the same ballroom for another charity event. But this time, everything was different. This time when they walked in together, she was wearing his ring. Marry me, he'd said 3 weeks earlier, dropping to one knee in the library where they'd had their first real conversation. Not because it's logical or safe or expected, but because I can't imagine my life without you. Because you're the bravest, most incredible woman I've ever met. Because you saw the worst of me and loved me anyway. She'd said yes before he could finish. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Lorenzo wore a black suit, Camille wore ivory lace, and when they said their vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I promise to protect you," Lorenzo said, voice rough with emotion. "But more than that, I promise to trust you to protect yourself. To stand beside you, not in front of you. To choose us always, no matter how hard it gets." "I promise to love you fearlessly," Camille replied, tears streaming down her face. "To call you out when you're being stubborn, to remind you that you're more than your empire, and to build a life with you that's ours alone." When they kissed, it felt like coming home. A year later, Camille sat in the library, hand resting on her swollen belly, watching Lorenzo work at his desk. He'd stepped back from the more dangerous aspects of his business, focusing instead on legitimate enterprises and building something he could be proud of. "You're staring," he said without looking up. "I like looking at you." He smiled, setting aside his papers and crossing to her. His hand joined hers on her stomach, feeling their daughter move beneath their palms. "We made this," he said softly. "We made a lot of things." She gestured around them. The home they'd built, the life they'd created, the love that had conquered everything. "I never thought I could have this. Happiness. Peace. Family." "Neither did I." Lorenzo knelt beside her chair, eyes shining. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to choose me. For not running when things got hard. For showing me that love is stronger than fear." Camille cupped his face, kissing him gently. "Thank you for fighting for us. For proving that even in the darkest places, love can win." Their daughter kicked and they both laughed, foreheads pressed together, completely and utterly in love. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the life we're born into, but the person who makes us want to walk away from it. Lorenzo had been willing to sacrifice everything for Camille's safety. She'd been willing to risk everything to stand beside him. And together they'd built something neither violence nor fear could destroy. Because in the end, love hadn't just conquered the danger. It had transformed it. Had taken two people from different worlds and created something new. Something beautiful. Something worth fighting for. And as Camille watched the sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson, Lorenzo's arms wrapped around her and their daughter moving between them, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. She'd chosen love. She'd chosen him. She'd chosen them. And she'd do it again in a heartbeat.